Hello, it's Dawn Michelle from Boho Tarot, and today we'll be taking a look at the dreamy and earthy Tarot of the Secret Forest. So the Tarot of the Secret Forest takes us into the heart of a magical world hidden deep beneath the brambles. So here, mythical beings frolic in the foliage and tangle with creatures that creep and crawl across our world. So within these cards, nature reveals the secrets that touches upon something both magical and ancient within our soul. So let's venture within the world of the Tarot of the Secret Forest. The Tarot of the Secret Forest is a beautiful blend of earthly energy and magical mystery. With so much detail to be found within these paintings, one really does feel as if we've ducked beneath the wild undergrowth and emerged into a secret world. Within these cards, you will find a new path leading you through the Arcanas. While some of the images offer a nod to traditional concepts, each card approaches the tarot from a deeply instinctual place, making this a wonderful deck for readers who wish to dive into the imagery. Although the artwork on the front of the cards is truly inspiring, the back of the cards elevate this deck to a whole nother level. On the front of the cards, we have these beautiful and evocative images that stir the heart and mind. But on the back, we find a whole nother world. Like a reflection in the moonlight, we see each card from a new perspective. The stunningly illustrated fronts are almost magically both accentuated and simplified by the beautifully evocative black and white images on the back. The monochromatic artwork calls forth the shadow or the primordial aspects of each card, allowing us to submerge ourselves within this underlying energy. Unlike a traditional tarot deck where we can delay our interactions with a card by laying it face down, in the Tarot of the Secret Forest, we are challenged to confront each image as it appears. So in this way, we are asked to tap into our own instincts and read from a place of soul rather than ego. The two sides of this deck do indeed offer a new dimension to tarot that I believe will challenge and inspire even the most seasoned of readers. We find the most recognizable nods to traditional tarot in the major arcana. Here our little fae find themselves battling creepy crawlies in the shadows, lounging in the lush vegetation, and sprinkling their magic through the sun-dappled foliage. So let's take a look through these beautiful images. Here we have the Fool, your front and back, the Magician, the High Priestess, the Empress, the Emperor, the Hierophant, the Lovers, the Chariot, we have the Strength at position 8, the Hermit, the Wheel, Justice at 11, the Hanged Man, Death, Temperance, the Devil, the Tower, the Star, the Moon, the Sun, Judgment, and the World. You can see we definitely have some traditional imagery here, See, here we see the Empress with her little miniature staff as she leans in to engage the lush surroundings. And here we have the Emperor who's sitting upon his throne of vines looking down at his forest below. So we definitely get a very traditional sense of our Empress and Emperor, despite the fact that they are very untraditional looking. And I absolutely love that. I love that the Hierophant is in motion. He appears to be leaping onto this little berry or whatever it is he's jumping onto. We have our beautiful lovers. So we have two little fays supporting each other. But here's the interesting thing. When you turn it around and look at the black and white version, you get almost a sense of struggle between these lovers. Are they supporting each other or are they struggling with each other? And that is one of the things that I really love about this deck. Our traditional Chariot and strength. In strength, we see more of a physical manifestation of strength rather than an inner one. And again, very powerful in the black and white version. So you can see that we definitely have some traditional images and some very untraditional representations of some of our major arcana. So we can see that the darker shades of the cards are definitely reflected within these striking black and white images on the reverse side. And this offers us perhaps a more instinctual or primordial aspect of each of the major arcana. Our minor arcana is represented by chalices, pentacles, wands, and sword. Within each of these suits, we find the elemental energies infusing the tiny slices of nature's mystery with earthly experiences. So let's take a look at the suit of chalices. The suit of chalices speaks to the emotional ebb and flow of life, where moods and emotions, memories and sentiment flow through these mossy waters. So here we have the Ace. And you can definitely see a very striking difference between the front and the back on this particular card. The 2. Three of Cups, or chalices in this case. 4. Almost reminiscent of the Tower here. 5. 6. 7. 8. Love the tree. But here what looks like the tree is being stabbed. And here it looks like a branch growing out. So really interesting how the fronts and backs really show one side of the card and a sort of shadow or primordial aspect of the back of it. 9. 10. So our courts in this deck are represented by knaves, knights, queens, and kings. And this is a low Scarabeo deck, and it does have the symbols above along with the suit association at the bottom rather than words or titles. So here we have the Knave of Chalices, the Knight, the Queen, and the King. Our suit of Pentacles, we bring matter into being through cooperation and creation, working our way towards growth and abundance. So here we have the Ace, the 2, the 3, the 4, 5, beautiful 6, beautiful 7. This is the image that is on one side of the box. The other side has the world. The 8. The 9. Ten. The knave. The knight. The queen. And the king. Our suit of wands brings us the fiery energy of instincts and action, where ambition and competition drive us toward our soulful path. So here we have the ace, 2, 3 of wands, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the 9, the 10, the little jungle growing on the tortoise. Our knave, our knight, the queen, and the king. In the suit of swords, we find the air of thoughts and beliefs, danger and turmoil lurking in the half-light that penetrates the forest. So here we have the ace. Oops, almost forgot to show you the back. Kind of the point of this deck. The 2. Interesting 2 of swords. The 3. The 4. 5. 6. Love that 6. Beautiful. My card's going backwards. The 7 of swords. Love the 7 of swords. Beautiful. The 8 of swords. The 9. The 10. The knave. The knight. Charging in on his bird. The queen. And the king. So although the minors each offer their own interpretation of life, matter, energy, and mind, we can find roots to more traditional concepts buried within all of these images. Really is a beautiful collection of minors. So now let's talk a little bit about working with this deck. The Tarot of the Secret Force is published by Lo Scarabeo as part of their Art Tarot collection. The deck itself is their standard size, with the cards measuring 2 3/4 inches by 4 3/4 inches, and it's printed on their standard cardstock. I have edged this one in black. It does not come this way, just to let you know. It comes with the white edges, but I think if you're going to keep the borders, the blacks really finish it off well. The cardstock is fabulous. I actually am a fan of Los Scarabeo cardstock, just not their title printings. It does have a black border on both the front and the back, and it has the number generally at the top, so you can see here the number at the top with the symbols for the quartz, and then again number for the majors repeated at the bottom, and the symbol association for each suit at the bottom for the minors. It does come in this little tuck box, which is still in pretty good shape for me because I actually don't keep my deck in the tuck box. I have a bag for it. And it comes with your typical Los Scarabeo cardstock. It does have a little bit of information about the Tarot of the Secret Forest written by the artist. And it is a really interesting read. I definitely recommend giving this first little part, this little introduction, a read. It talks more about getting to know the cards, and it talks specifically about the two different sides of the cards. Then we go into talking about readings, and we have the basic meanings, which are pretty standard for the most part. There are some changes. And we have a 5-card spread, and then we go in, so 14 pages, and then we go into the multiple languages as we normally find. So the cards do shuffle beautifully. As I said, I'm a fan of Los Scarabeo cardstock. But what I do, even though I don't generally read with reversals, what I do with this deck is I specifically turn half of the cards. So I'll take the deck, so I would give them a shuffle. Get them a good mix here. Love the way they shuffle. Now, what I do, I don't reverse them because I don't read reversals. What I do is I take approximately half the deck and I turn one side, color side up, and one side, the black and white side up. So I'm still shuffling them the same way so I don't get reversals. Although you could, if you do read with reversals, you could take your black and white stack and reverse them. But with this deck, I really don't feel you need reversals. So now I just take them and I shuffle those black and white ones forward facing and the color ones forward facing. So I get a nice mix of both. So you can see now I've got a nice mix. They're all still upright because that's the way I read. And again, like I said, I really don't think you need reversals with this deck because I think you're going to get that balance with having the black and white images and the color images. So this is how I work with this deck, and it does depend which way you turn it. So if I turn it this way, I'm going to get the opposites, right? So that's really interesting about this deck. So let's lace them out. I have found readings with this deck to be really profoundly personal, with an emotional thread running through all 78 cards. So while this is really a balanced deck in terms of design and structure, every card in every position seems to provoke an emotional response. So while this deck feels very in tune with earth energy, it does tap into a very emotional space that really has helped me to explore and understand the emotional undercurrents of my reading. So this creates readings that are both grounded and flowing, which creates the perfect balance for emotional growth and reflection. When we look at this spread here, we see some cards could be considered in shadow and some cards in light. You could also read them as you would read an upright or a reversed. So even though this is temperance, we could read this as temperance in reverse even though it is upright. Now how I read it is this is temperance in shadow. So a lack of balance. So adding the shadow or these primordial energy of the card backs into your reading intensifies every reading and challenged me to look at those archetypes from a new perspective. So adding this layer into my reading really helped me to dive deep into the murky waters of the subconscious, and I think that this is a beautiful deck for that. So although this deck could certainly be used for general readings or daily card pulls, I found it really well suited for exploring the emotional vibrations and undercurrents of a given situation. So those with a foundational knowledge of tarot may find new perspectives and layers of depth within the deck. There are after all 156 images to explore if you're considering the front and back of each cards. So however, those that are learning to just read tarot for the first time may find these non-traditional images difficult to decipher and the secondary images a bit overwhelming. Having said all of that, if you are an intuitive reader, regardless of experience, there is a vast world to explore and discover within these images. The deck reads exceptionally well from an intuitive approach. In fact, that is how I read this deck. I don't pay any attention to the number or the suit. What I look at is what's going on in the card. What is the undercurrent? What is the vibration? What is the feeling? Because to me, this deck is very emotionally driven because you have those images that are both light and shadow. If we look at this page here, and we don't even pay attention to the fact that he's a page. Let's just look at the image. We have this being, this strong knight-like figure. Maybe he's got a little bit of a broken shield there, but he's still standing strong and he looks secure. But when we look at the reverse, we can see the detail on his face, and now we see that he looks a bit perhaps perplexed or overwhelmed. And that is generally not what I would associate with the Page of Swords, but we can see in shadow where all of that mental energy, that knowledge that he's seeking might be a bit overwhelming. Whereas here, we get a more of a sense of cohesiveness. Maybe a little bit of, we do have the broken shield, so maybe there's a little bit of struggle going on there, certainly with the sword suit, but if we don't even pay attention to that and we just look at this image, you can see how it shows a different world, front to back. And that, I think, is the beauty of this deck. So after spending some time working with the Tarot of the Secret Forest, what really resonated with me the most about this deck was that the black and white images really add a whole another layer to your reading. So whether you choose to read them as shadow or primordial or something else entirely, they really expand the deck in a beautiful way. The color images are stunning and emotionally charged and intuitively reflective. They are absolutely gorgeous and have quite a bit of detail that makes me wish that this deck was a little bit bigger. The physical deck blends really well when you mix these two cards together, the two sides together. So I highly recommend taking the half and shuffling it so you do get some of those black and white cards on top. And like I said, depending on which way you flip the deck is going to depend which ones come up in their monochromatic state and which ones come up in their colored state. Shuffles well, bridges well, lays out well, gorgeous card stock. So definitely appreciate that about this deck. So a couple of the things that I found a bit challenging along the way are, while I do really like the size of the cards, which is generally this is closer to the size I prefer, I do wish that these images stretch the whole of the card. So in other words, I wish it was borderless, and I say that about a lot of decks, but this deck in particular, because there is a lot of detail going on, that it would be nice if it stretched the whole image of the card, especially since it is a smaller size, or really what is now its standard size, but it's now kind of considered small since we have lots of bigger tarot decks coming out. So I do wish that there was just a little bit more space dedicated to the actual artwork. Although I do appreciate that there are not the multiple languages on the borders, which is typical Lo Scarabeo, they do have these symbols and the suit symbols at the top and bottom, or just numbers, as we can see here. I do find that I don't like this little, you can see it better on the wands. I'm not fond of this little extra dash of color. It's just distracting. I think the symbols are a little bit big, so I think they could have been a little bit smaller. And in all honesty, I would prefer the symbols would not be there and it just be nice text on the bottom. That would be my preference. But that's being really nitpicky. Those are really the only things that I found a bit challenging about these cards, is I just wish the images were either the full length of the card, or even a little bit bigger would have been fine. And I wish the symbols weren't quite so big and distracting. Still better than those multiple languages that they used to do in the past. The Tarot of the Forest is an intensive and expressive journey through the 78 cards of the Major Arcana. It is well suited for readers who want to dive into this deep imagery and explore reading from a new perspective. The use of mostly non-traditional structure may be a bit challenging for new readers, but it can still be mastered with the help of the little white book. The beautiful works of art combined with the unique monochromatic backs will make this deck a treasure in any tarot collection. If for nothing else, it is different. Although I do find it to be a really fantastic reader as well. So thank you for joining me through the Tarot of the Secret Forest. I hope that you enjoyed exploring this deck and will join me again soon for more creative tarot for an inspired life.